the official MoonWilly.com podcast, your source for news and updates from the hottest token in DeFi. Here's your host, the voice of DeFi, Steven.
It is day 2 of 5 days of AMAs. That's right. This week we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, a fresh AMA coming straight into your ear every day, where we're bringing some exciting new projects for you to learn about right here on the MoonWilly.com podcast. And today we have a special one, as we have Ramachandran. He is the founder of both Router and Dfyn. I'll put the Router protocol and the Dfyn network links in the show notes below. But check this out. Very interesting gentleman and a very interesting project as we talk about how cross-chain bridging can be so important. Enjoy. Check. 1, 2. What is up, everybody? It is me, Steven, the voice of DeFi, and we got a fire AMA today. Man, I'm excited. I love AMAs, and this is AMA week. Sometimes we really just get on a crazy streak of doing AMAs here at the MoonWilly.com podcast, and this week is one of those weeks. We've got an AMA every day this week, Monday through Friday. We've got an AMA with some great, promising projects every day. And today is no different. Today, I'm going to have with us Ramachandran and he's going to talk about the Router and Dfyn projects. Some very, very promising projects, multi-chain, cross-chain bridges, and how they are the key to ecosystem growth. So it's going to be a fantastic AMA where we're going to learn a lot about the project and maybe, just a little bit, so we can just learn a little bit in the crypto world itself. Because, I always come away from these AMAs learning just a little bit more than I went in, because the experts that we bring in here, they truly know so much that they've probably forgotten more about crypto than I even know in totality. They literally know so much that they've forgotten more than I can ever even know. So it just tells you how much they do know in the first place. So I am excited to bring today with us, like I said, Ramachandran. Are you in here, Ramani? May not be in here quite yet. If you guys do see him in here, make sure you shoo him to the front. Thank you, Abilis, for putting that nice little, what do you call those in Telegram? I want to call them hashtags, but that's not what they are, where you can click on them. But yeah, today we'll have someone from the Dfyn network, as well as the Router network, which is kind of more of the parent project in here. So as soon as he comes in here, we will be able to discuss that. If you are in here and you're just following around project to project for different AMAs, and you're wondering, well, what's this Moon Willy podcast? Well, this is a podcast that focuses on the token on the BSC chain called Moon Willy. And on it, 8% of every transaction is converted into the stable coin of DAI. So $1,000 is transacted, there will be $80 that comes from that in the form of DAI. And then that is redistributed. That $80 will then be redistributed amongst the holders of the Moon Willy token. So that's great. It's a rewards token, but there's other things in the pipeline that's going to make it even greater. There'll be some NFT projects coming, that sort of thing. All of this is put together by the doxed founder of the Moon Willy token, which is Kevin. And Kevin runs the Cryptopedia network. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a website. He is well versed in the space of cryptocurrency. So if you are new to crypto, this is a good place to learn a lot. Not necessarily from me, but you can learn a lot from Kevin. And then, of course, with the AMAs that we bring in here for just all of the knowledge that we'll be able to bring in. And like I said, this week especially, because we've got a lot, and I mean a lot of AMAs this week to be able to really just hit you with quite a bit of knowledge. We've got Envoy tomorrow, the 6th. We have Unbound, another project. Now that one's going to be happening on Thursday at 1600 UTC on Thursday. So join us 2 hours earlier than you normally do. And then on Friday, we've got Game Station. It is our regular time at 1800 UTC, but Game Station is another project that we'll have an AMA with I believe his name is Jason, that we'll have come in here. And that's going to be a fantastic one too. So every day. Oh, I like Andrew Smith's die little picture there, where the little die guy is on a roller coaster. But Die doesn't go on a roller coaster, no dips, and I guess that's what's funny about the roller coaster he's on with Die is it's completely straight and doesn't go up and down because it is a stable coin, right? So interesting about that. All right, let me just, I need to do a check every now and then to make sure that Mr. Ramachandran, are you in here, Ramani? Kevin, if you can reach out and see if you can, I think we just found him. Ramani, I see you are in here. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Man, I am doing fantastic. Got a lot of AMAs this week here with the Moon Willie community, and they're excited to be able to learn a lot about Dfyn and the router protocol today as well. Is it early in the morning or late at night where you are?
It's it's around 11:30 p.m. local time, so it's pretty late in the night.
Yeah, pretty late. I always love talking to a worldwide audience, and you got some people that are rising up with the sun and other people that are having their dinner at night. So yeah, worldwide, crypto is worldwide and has no borders. So it's kind of fun like that. But so let me just start out with you, and I know you just logged on. So I'm Steven. I go by the pseudonym of the Voice of DeFi, and I run these AMAs where we can kind of just sit back, relax, almost like just two friends at the bar sort of a thing. So this will be more of a laid back AMA, but you have a lot of information to be able to bring us. So I want to just introduce you to everyone so they know who you are. But the first thing is, how'd you get started just even in this crazy world of crypto? We're going to have two major projects, the router protocol and Dfyn. But what experience really brought you here to ultimately bring you here today to be talking to me? Are you there, Ramani?
Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, I can hear you now. It looked like you were talking, but it wasn't showing up. Are you here now? Make sure I can hear you.
We can't hear you, Ram.
Hey, Mr. Ramani, are you there? It doesn't look like we can hear you.
Hear me?
I can hear you now. But usually that's the only thing I can hear you is you asking if I can hear you. Is there something with your mic or anything like that where I can hear you and kind of how you got started in this crazy crypto world?
Use your cell phone to come on, right, and just talk through that. That's easier.
Give me one sec. I think I'm having some sort of technical issues. I'll just figure this out.
Nope, no problem at all. Yeah, just if you need to log off and back on or whatever you need to do, then that's fine. And hey, that's the thing. I think yesterday we had some issues with, technical issues. Of course, there was like worldwide issues going on with voice chats and Facebook and WhatsApp yesterday. So, technical issues happen. Sometimes it's on my end. Sometimes it's on, the person we're doing an AMA with. And then sometimes it's just a little of everything. I certainly can. So what I had asked right before, we had some issues, is just what got you started into crypto?
Johnny, give me one sec.
No problem. Always as an interviewer for me, it's probably one of the more challenging aspects because, it's like anything else. It's like doing a play where you learn all the lines and then something happens that you weren't expecting, a beam falls from the ceiling and you're supposed to act like, that was supposed to happen. And you go on and ad lib through it. That's a little bit of what it can be like in running a live AMA because things happen. Things just happen. You never know when technology will kind of get in the way a little bit.
Yeah. And now even with this, man, like every single person that comes on has technical issues. So I guess it's more common than uncommon, I would say now, right?
Absolutely true. And some of it is Telegram, I think, because we were on a pretty good streak of not having any technical issues. We had several AMAs that didn't. And then all of a sudden, now here the last 2 or 3 of them, there have been some issues. So it just goes in streaks, and it's just part of the game. We have an AMA that's basically about technology, but we still are limited by technology that's out there. It's just part of it, but that's all right. I mean, we can, I'm flexible. I can, why are all my analogies are always football related, and I'm trying to get new analogies, but when you get up to the line of scrimmage and you you see the defense and you call a different play. Well, that's what sometimes you got to do, is just call a different play, see what's out there. I see you're back on, Mr. Ramani. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for your patience.
You sound so much better. You sound, yeah, I'm serious. You sound loud and clear. So whatever you did worked well. Well, what I'd asked right before you had some issues is, what got you started in crypto? What got you down this path?
Yeah, great question. And first off, thank you for this opportunity. You have a great community, and I really appreciate the chance to sort of come and have a conversation with you and your family. So first off,
great.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I got started in crypto maybe 6 years ago, maybe 6, 7, 2014. Yeah, almost 7 years now. I was doing innocent banking out of Singapore. So actually, let me go back a few years. I'm from India, and I spent my childhood in the south of India, which was probably the only state in the world that actually elected a communist government, like a socialist government, right? And then, so that was something that was very close to my heart, socialism and poverty eradication and equal opportunity and all that. And then, as the country opened up, I had the opportunity to come to the US, and I lived and worked and studied there for almost 8 years, and I had the opportunity to go to MIT to do my MBA at Sloan. And I also really appreciated the opportunities that capitalism and meritocracy and the US system actually allowed you to sort of flourish in, right? And from a philosophically, crypto is a sort of best of both worlds, in that both worlds, in that the community aspect that you commonly associate with socialism, that's very strong in crypto. It's all about community. The biggest blockchains, they all have the biggest communities of developers, users, and so on and so forth. But also, it's also ruthlessly a meritocracy, right? The best projects survive. The best projects attract users, and there's nobody sort of trying to play favorites. No external force or no vested interest trying to play favorites, right? So
yeah.
So from that sense, it's something that really appealed to me, right? And when I was looking to build a platform to tokenize securities way back in 2014, as an innocent banker, I sort of discovered this thing called the blockchain, and then Bitcoin after that. And so that's the story. That's how I got into crypto maybe 7 years ago now.
Interesting. And one of the things you said, and I'm going to use this, that crypto is kind of the best aspects of socialism and the best aspects of capitalism. Both of those two schools of thought have some downsides to them, of course. Right. But You're right. Crypto seems to be able to kind of go away from the downsides of both of those schools of thought and kind of have both of the good points about it, of all inclusiveness and that sort of thing that you might see with socialism. But at the same time, just like you said, capitalism, the good projects survive and are able to capitalize on that good project. So very good. You've already given me something that I kind of want to, I'll probably repeat that at some point in the future, because I like the way you say it. I really do. So yeah, then you got into blockchain and you understood that in 2014. So it sounds like you have quite a bit of experience in crypto now, going on 6-7 years. So in this, you found that, Bitcoin had its own blockchain, and, Ethereum had its own blockchain, and all these other blockchains were around.
Right.
Did this kind of get to where you're looking at Router, to where you're seeing that cross chain, there was an unmet need with for like a cross-chain bridge. Is that kind of what brought you ultimately to Router, is just seeing all these different segregated chains that had no way of communicating?
Yeah, pretty much, right? Pretty much. But the journey was, it's never linear. I mean, when you think about it, it's never linear. So so we started building a bunch of products, and some worked, some didn't work. Sometime last year, I guess around the beginning of the DeFi summer of 2020, me and some of my tech colleagues decided to fork Uniswap and launched that on Polygon, which is still a very early chain back then. So this is actually the first DEX on Polygon, sometime I think last August or so, right? And what we figured was, we actually had an innovation. This was Dfyn, and one of the cool things we did was we integrated gasless transactions. So you had a DEX where, thanks to Polygon, it was very, very cheap, and therefore we literally made it free for the user for most transactions. So you could come in, you just click swap, and boom, that's it.
Wow!
Right? Yeah. So that was clearly something that really attracted a lot of folks. But the big thing that we saw was, although we had built this nice venue, it was difficult for people to come over from, say, Ethereum or BSC or any other chain, right? It's almost like, you have a nice bar in Brooklyn or, let's say in Jersey City, where I spend a bunch of my time in the US. And there are no bridges and tunnels to get there, right? I mean, the only way to get there is an old steamboat or something that takes you 7 minutes to come, or to come this way and 30 minutes to go the other way, right? So it is a bit of a... Right. So it is almost extrapolate the problem. Blockchain. It's like various communities, various.
Én vagyok a kispatak, télen alszom még alatt.
Just a moment. I got it. Sorry about that. Go on.
No problem. So yeah, I think the analogy of various blockchains and the communities being, different. Spaces, real geographical spaces, different piece of real estate. That works, right? So you have LA, you have New York, you have Berlin, you have London, you have Singapore, you have Mumbai. So if you think of those as the individual blockchains, and all of these have their own venues, lending platforms, trading platforms, all sort of dApps that sort of are endemic to one blockchain and then spread out to other blockchains. Right now, how do you sort of get these blockchains to communicate with each other? That seemed to be a bigger problem when we were looking at it, and that's how we sort of started thinking about Router sometime last December, and so we've been working on this for almost 9 months now, and hoping to hit mainnet soon.
Wow. I like your analogy where you talk about, like different cities with transit systems between them. That's a good analogy, because transit systems in one city may be more expensive to ride the bus or the train or whatever. But in another city, it may be cheaper, much like blockchain is really expensive on one chain and a lot cheaper on another chain. But still, in your city analogy, you still need to go from city to city occasionally. You can't just stay in one place. So I really like that analogy. So give me a little bit of an elevator pitch of a quick overview of what Router is. And then once you tell me what that is, that will lead to give me a quick elevator pitch of what Dfyn is.
Right.
And what makes them unique.
Yeah, absolutely. So what Router is going back to an analogy. So you can think of Router as the infrastructure that lets you sort of communicate across these various blockchains. So once you solve for the fundamental problem of communication across blockchains, you can have a bunch of apps and DEXs and wallets and pretty much anything on any blockchain, plugging into Router and taking use of the cross-chain capability that Router provides, right? So you could have cross-chain lending, cross-chain swapping, cross-chain governance, other cross-chain dApps. So you could literally have anything. So once you solve for the core problem of cross-chain messaging, it's almost like you're enabling, you're building these airports or airlines or roads or highways that connects these blockchains and lets communication and therefore liquidity and everything sort of seamlessly shuttle between these chains. So that's router. And Dfyn is, you can think of Dfyn as the airport terminals or the bus terminals from which liquidity embarks onto these onto the bridges that router is building. So maybe I just stick to the airport analogy that I use a lot. So Dfyn would be the bunch of airports where liquidity embarks and disembarks, and router is like the airline route that literally takes liquidity to other places, and typically they can terminate on Dfyn as well on various chains, but they could also end on PancakeSwap or Uniswap. So they're sort of both are not, they're related, they're optimized for each other, but Dfyn can work with any other cross-chain solution, and router can work with any other DEX or DApp or anything at full scale.
You have really good analogies, but I liked your socialism and capitalism discussion in the beginning, which wasn't an analogy, but that was good. And then your transit system is excuse me, your transit system is a good analogy as well. Both of them really help to, I don't know, just add color to what you're saying. It helps me understand a lot better. So you're good at what you do. You've done this before, I can see. So, well, I think for what we all do really is, we're all involved in crypto, whether it's me on a voice chat or you, leading up a project. It takes, they say, if you can't explain something in simple language, that you really don't understand it. So you've definitely got the ability to explain it in simple language, which I appreciate. And I know our audience appreciates it too, because some people are kind of new to the space, and it's good to be able to do that. One thing I might suggest to everybody is go to routerprotocol.com. It's the main site of Router. Matter of fact, here, I will add it to the Moon Willie chat. Go there, and right at the top, you can see products we're hiring in light paper, and take a look at their light paper, because it's pretty explanatory over everything they do, even giving good pictures and descriptions, kind of what I said of explaining things in easy to understand language. Oh, there you go. Kevin actually just put a link right up to the light paper. But I took a look at it, and it really gives how liquidity is really just spread out amongst all the chains. I mean, we know because Moon Willie is a BSC chain, all the liquidity is in there. But if we looked at all the other chains, a lot of the liquidity is just spread out between chains. And that really becomes really the issue that you're kind of trying to solve. Is that correct? Just being able to move liquidity from one chain to another.
That's absolutely right. And it's not a trivial problem, because there's so many chains. There's the EVM chains and the non-EVM chains. So you have Ethereum, Avalanche, BSC, and Polygon, which are, I guess, the major EVM guys. Obviously, Arbitrum, Optimism, and then you have the Solana, Terra, and that side of the world, which is decidedly non-EVM, Algorand, right? So, and each of these chains they're all well funded, which means that they can build effective communities. They're not going to go away anytime soon. And there's going to be interesting efforts to sort of attract community, build dApps on all of these chains, which means that as a yield farmer, or as a user, or as a trader, or as a lending, somebody that uses lending and borrowing, you want to be able to sort of take advantage of all this opportunities that lie across chains, right? And it's not all, now the way that it's happening right now is there are various teams focusing on optimizing bridges between various pairs of blockchains, right? For example, there is a official Matic wallet / bridge between Ethereum and Polygon. There is a couple of bridges that start out of Solana, and they run into, I think, Ethereum and a couple of other chains, right? So there are individual approaches that optimize literally one-to-one communication, and it's not a simple problem, primarily because there's so many attack vectors, and between June of this year and August of this year, pretty much every large cross-chain project out there actually got hacked, right? So it's not a trivial problem, right? And so I actually forgot what your question was. I just rambled on. So No. Even whenever you're rambling, there's gold in those hills. So it's good to be able to hear. So you've got a lot of tools here.
And, crypto is filled, especially with startup projects. There's a lot of tools, but really a user needs kind of an incentive, right? We all have to have a reason to mine for Bitcoin or to, use any specific tool. Everybody wants some incentive. So what incentive might a user have to use your tools? Talk about like the route token and how users can lock in their assets to receive LP tokens.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key differentiators with the router project is the fact that most of the competitors that we in the space don't really have a full-fledged AMM like Dfyn that is supporting the whole cross-chain analogy, the whole cross-chain infrastructure. Right? It's almost like you have Virgin Atlantic, and then you have Virgin Atlantic airports, or spread across various cities. So what that means is you can optimize a lot of instead of when there's two different projects working, there's a lot of issues around optimization, etc. So because we have both the defined AMM across multiple blockchains and also the router cross-chain infrastructure, there's many ways in which we can incentivize initial traction and community through yield farming and various other farming and staking programs, right? I mean, you could have single-sided staking on router where you could stake your USDT, and that helps to build liquidity on any chain, right? And then you can mint, let's say, our USDT, for instance, right? And you could take that and you could pop that into our USDT farm and Dfyn, and again farm there. And then you could maybe take the LP token, collateralize that, mint some more, and take it back to the router bridge and add liquidity there. So there's so many different ways in which you can get the liquidity flywheel started. Right? And I would imagine a lot of projects will look at a lot of these ideas going forward once the bridge space sees some maturity. I think, but the advantage that we have is we have both the Dfyn token and the route token, which can seamlessly support each other.
Well, one part of the light paper that I kind of was interested in, and I'm going to put it here in the main Moonwoolly chat. I just took a screenshot of it, but you guys can check it out in its entirety on here. But you talk about liquidity mining using the XCLP framework. And one of the part it says on there is it says, in return for locking their assets, the users will receive LP tokens. And it mentions USDC in this case. But it says then they can do one of two things. And one, they can stake on a separate router contract. And two, they can pool their tokens with their stablecoin counterpart on Dfyn. So do you see kind of a 50-50 split of people using these two different options to of what they're going to do?
Oh, I think it's actually sequential, right? So it's literally leveraging the composability of DeFi. So let's say you come in and you see this router bridge and it's offering, let's say, 50-60% APR on if you deposit your USDC. So you stake your USDC, mint RUSDC, and you take the RUSDC and go to define the AMM, and you could start a USDC farm, or even RUSDC DAI farm, right? So you literally you're providing liquidity on a route, and you're also taking the LP token and bring that to Dfyn. Now, are you going to be double dipping, and how the reward's going to be split? That's actually a design decision we're still working through in terms of where the incentivization is, what split we will achieve, etc. But broadly, the idea is that you can stake and mint an R token, and then you can farm that. You can use that in a pool and Dfyn and then farm again.
I love that whole idea, and that's just, inherent to just farming, is by finding a project that you believe in, you can, farm and provide liquidity for that project. And in return, you can actually get, a piece of that project. And if you didn't believe in the project, you wouldn't do it, because what you would be getting back as a reward, if you didn't believe in it, you would think that is worthless. But in this project, if you believe in it, you can provide liquidity for it, get back some of this route, token, and then see it grow from there. So I think that sounds very good. And it sounds like you've got a good incentive structure to be able to get people to want to provide liquidity to really be able to get it, strong. Have you found that the combination of having, like you said, the AMM, having both Dfyn and the router protocol together, have you found that people are more accepting of your project because you have both of those components?
I definitely think so, right? I mean, I think it's at this moment until you launch the project, it's all speculation at some level, but it seems to me that something like that would definitely be attractive because, you are actually kicking off a flywheel where the liquidity from router finds its way into Dfyn, and then again, you can do one more level of collateralization and take more liquidity back to router, almost like how you stake your Ethereum, let's say $150 of Ethereum, or maybe 160 or 170, slightly more than 150. You can stake that and mint, DAI, and then you can buy more ETH and go back and stake. And, it's like you can do that for a...
Well, and that's what I was thinking here is you're going to have people that just kind of churn, right? They get their rewards and then turn around and get those rewards, put it back into the system. And then,
exactly.
It's compounding.
Exactly. You could do a lot of auto compounding. And the other thing that I should mention here is also, if you are a route holder, you could have, at some point, we'll have validators for validating the transactions and relaying them across the router network. And you could also delegate your validation to a set of validators and earn a share of the fees that accrues to these validators.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's right. I got that little screenshot of the liquidity mining earlier, but right below that, I didn't include it in the screenshot. Everybody can go to the light paper themselves, but it's right below that. It talks about how route holders will be able to provide liquidity and then ultimately have a validator node. And yeah, that validator node will get a share of transaction fees that's charged by the platform, correct? That's what they're going to be rewarded in is transaction fees.
That's right.
That's great. And you can really see how somebody can really get into the ecosystem and be rewarded fairly handsomely for, investing into the ecosystem to really kind of, and like I said, this is all exactly what you would expect if you get in on a project early. So this is really ambitious. This is an ambitious project, and it takes a really good team to be able to do this. I can see on your website, you've got, your team on here, but how many people do you have on your team?
Oh, we have close to 25 folks right now, of which around 50, almost 15 are developers. So around 25 guys. Yeah.
Are you stationed throughout the world, or is this are you close enough where you can have a boardroom meeting and all see each other face to face?
Yeah. So what we do is we mostly. So I used to spend a lot of time in Singapore and Dubai and London before the lockdown. But since the lockdown, I've been mostly in India for personal reasons. So and most of the team is actually spread across India. So we have folks in New Delhi, in Mumbai, Bombay, and in Bangalore, which is of course a tech capital, and then a few guys spread across some of the smaller towns in India. And what we do is every quarter for the last 2 quarters, we do this workation. So we find this nice place, which is a good. The primary consideration is we need to find a place with very good internet, and then we all converge there and work out of there for a couple of weeks. So in July, we did a vacation in the Himalayas.
Wow!
And then this last week we did a vacation down south in some nice hills and forests, and it's again good Wi-Fi.
This is actually that you surprised me with the answer, and I think probably for the better is you're able to almost function like a traditional business that meets, even if it's like you said once every quarter, and you get to see each other face to face. Almost every crypto project I ask that question to, they say we're spread throughout the world and sometimes it's hard to communicate with each other because people have to sleep. And that's probably not the case from you. I got to think that communication is a little more agile and easier to do since you're all in the same time zone at the least.
Yes, I think that's been a blessing. I mean, the time zone thing is very important, as you said, right? I mean, even with the time zone, we have issue because some folks wake up at 4 a.m. Some folks go to bed at 4 a.m. So yeah,
it's those young people, right? It's the young people that are staying up too late, right?
That's right. But to be honest, I'm the oldest in the team, and I go to bed at 4 a.m. So I mean,
oh, check you out, man. Do you find that it's just, this is just an aside, it has nothing to do with your project, but are you doing that because you're up and you don't want to miss anything that's going on in other parts of the world, or is that just your biological clock is keeping you up at night?
No, it's a bit of both, right? I think I get distracted very easily. So during the daytime, calls, emails, WhatsApp, Slack, I just basically at 10:30, 11 p.m. local time, and the whole world sleeps, and that's when I start focusing and actually get some work done. All the deep work gets done when the world sleeps.
I see why you hesitated earlier when I said, "Is it late for you?" And you said, "It's 11:30." And for me, in my time, I'm in the United States, and if it's 11:30 for me, I may or may not be asleep already. But it sounds to me like you're kind of just getting your blood pumping. You're ready to.
Absolutely. I just had my second espresso of the day a couple of hours ago.
Oh my goodness. Espresso at 11:30 and you are cracking your knuckles and ready to get in front of the keyboard and do some damage. That's awesome. Well, you also have, I'm looking at your light paper and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got 5 people on here. And it's your 5 co-founders here on your light paper. But you said your team is 20 deep. That's pretty big, but you're also a very ambitious project. Are you going to be looking to expand in the near future?
Oh, absolutely. I think we're looking for, I think the key thing here we all realize is it's a war for talent, right? And programmers and talent and developers. And that's what, obviously you need product managers, marketers, etc. But those are still easier to come by. The programming talent, dev talent is the hardest to find. So we are actively recruiting at any point. We're speaking to at least 2 to 3 developers a day. And it's actively growing. But the bar is very high because, how it is in startups. The initial first 5, 6 guys, you like them, you work with them, but then as we're realizing, as we're growing, right, each interview that the conversion rate is sort of beginning to drop, which is probably a good thing, I think. Right now, I think if I interview for a role in my own company, I don't think I'll get through.
Yeah. Well, no doubt. So, looking in, I've got all these different positions, and you say developers are some of the hardest to find. And I agree with that. And you got to find not just ones that have the talent to do what you need them to do, but you have to be able to trust them as well. There's a high level of trust you need with the developers. But next up that I think is very, very important is your marketing. What's your plans to really get the word out there? How are you going to make Router and Dfyn be on the tip of everybody's tongue?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a good point. I think a lot of the one thing that I've seen, a lot of projects, they don't have an office in the US or even some of the traditional geographies like Singapore or Valley, or they struggle at is getting the word out, getting the marketing. That's always a challenge for projects that are outside the mainstream cities. I do believe that India is growing and there's a lot of blockchain talent coming through. And I think the next 2 to 3 years, India will be very much a key part in the whole blockchain space. I think at the moment, marketing is still a work in progress for us. Now, having said that, Dfyn is one of the top dApps on Polygon. I think it's after Quick and Sushi, we're probably the largest DEX on Polygon, right? And
wow.
And I think we had a lot of, we were one of the best performing Polka starter IDOs a few months ago. We're still around the top 10. I think we're still around 10x, 15x from where we launched in Polka Starter in May. So it's a huge community. We have a huge community in Telegram, on social media, etc. And there's a lot of activity in both the Router and Dfyn channels. So what we want to focus on is initially just launch with the Ethereum Polygon bridge, which is I think between 7 to 8 billion on that bridge. And even if you get maybe 5% of that, you're looking at a 400 million in TVL on Router bridge, right? So I think there's a huge, when the problem space is huge and we're sort of well known in the Polygon ecosystem, I think we will start with Ethereum Polygon and then move on to, we're speaking to other chains. We're already on, Dfyn is already on a few other chains, and Router also plans to be on EVM and non-EVM chains, including Terra and Algorand. So I think we sequentially build up across chains, initially starting with the chains that we know well, which is Polygon and Ethereum, and then slowly take a community to the other chains. That's the thinking.
Yeah, and I can see that as you're growing, your communities grow. Obviously, as you break into other chains, you kind of grow your communities, and that in and of itself is marketing. By the way, as an aside, as you talked about, you think there's becoming a lot of talent in the India area. I completely agree with that. Almost every project I'm in, there's a pretty strong representation from India in that community. So to me, at least, that if I just do a cross sample of all the communities that I might be involved in, since I see somebody from India so often in these communities, I've got to think that there probably is a decent amount of talent in that area. So even if it's not the leader in, how much talent is there right now, if it's not already there, it's going to be there soon. Because it just seems that crypto is very well accepted there, just from my outsider point of view.
Yeah, I guess, I'll sort of qualify that comment with crypto is accepted at the youngsters, the folks that are under 30, which is probably 50, 60% of the Indian population. They love crypto. And there's a lot of crypto exchanges advertising during the cricket games, or, all these, the Uber Eats equivalent in India is Zomato or Swiggy. And there's a lot of advertising going on. There's a lot of adoption. At the regulatory and the legislation level, it's still a work in progress. I think the regulators are still trying to figure out, the only country in the world, the US can make crypto legal because the dollar is fully convertible, and then the US is confident of its position. But a lot of countries, China, India, they're still, especially the ruling dispensations, not completely clear on how crypto is going to help, how crypto is going to harm. They haven't done the balance sheet, and they're most worried about money laundering and other use cases, and also. So it's still a work in progress from that level. But having said that, there's a lot of talent coming out. There's so many good programmers coming out. And, you got to realize, I'm sure you remember this, but India is the IT back office of the world, right? Especially from the running memes about, you call up customer support and you get an Indian voice. But beyond that, there is this whole legion of programmers that from India, from the large IT companies that run software for the large banks, for Fortune 500 firms around the world. So you have that engineering architecture, education architecture that is, or infrastructure, right? That's helping drive a lot of folks from Web 2 to Web 3.
Man, as you were saying a lot of that, and you're saying, the young people really seem to be able to grab hold of crypto. And then you said, though, there seems to be some regulatory challenges. You could have been describing the U.S., I feel like, from that point, because we definitely have young people seem to get it more than older people. And that's one. And then two, I always feel like the U.S. government is just kind of has trouble of understanding what to do with crypto. And it sounds like you feel the same way in India. So we're all in a very similar, and maybe all governments are in a similar predicament, except for maybe like El Salvador, which seems to love Bitcoin and all that. But yeah, it just seems that governments just don't really know what to do with that. And I think a project like yours helps with this because it maybe can, bring some of these different chains together where it's more just a term of crypto rather than just saying the Bitcoin blockchain, the Polygon chain, all this. It just makes it a little more easy maybe for a older, because let's face it, that's who's making the laws in different countries is, people above 30 for the most part. So we need them to be able to understand it. So that sounds good. So before we get to, and I'm just about to open up questions from the community here where you can answer 5 questions from our community and we will pay them $20 in DAI. Moon Willie will pay them $20 in DAI rewards just for having you pick their question. But before we get to that, what's a good way? Let's say everybody's listening to this and they're like, wow, I really love to hear him speak. I'd love to follow their project. What's some of the best ways they can do what's some of the best things they can do to be able to follow your project along?
Oh yeah, no, great question. I think the best channels are Telegram and Discord, and obviously there's Twitter, etc. And we can drop this in the Telegram chat after the call. Or I think you probably already have the info. But yeah, routerprotocol.com, and there's a Telegram group, Dfyn HQ. There's also a fake Telegram group. Be careful. That's a number of followers.
You know you're legit. You know you've arrived when you have fake groups come up. You haven't really arrived until finally you've got that. But yeah, please do whenever you're through, put some of that information, especially the Discord group. I try to do a lot of research on each of the projects before I do a AMA with them. And I never wandered over to the Discord channel. So I would love that link. That would be really good. Okay. So I will now open it up to the audience. And so kind of giving the green light here, see if I can. There we go. Yeah, there's a green light. So now if you have, there we go. We got a few questions here. Ask questions, and Ramachandran will answer these questions. While you're doing that, I'm going to talk about Moon Willie just for a little bit. So if you, Ramani, will look over the different questions that they are asking, pick you 5 of them out, and then say who asked them right before you answer them, and I'll write that down and make sure that they get their $20 in DAI. But while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a little chance to do that because I'm going to talk about Moon Willie for a second. So if you wandered in here and you're following around our different AMAs just so you can learn a little bit, maybe you just want the DAI rewards for getting your questions selected, but you're saying, what even is this? Well, this is the moonwillie.com podcast. Moon Willie is an auto rewards token that will auto reward you in the stable coin of DAI. It's always worth $1, never worth more, never worth less. And this is good because in a down market, your DAI tokens will still be worth $1. Okay. So you don't have to worry about a plummeting value. So 8% of every transaction is converted into DAI and then redistributed amongst the holders of Moon Willie. Hold Moon Willie, you hold more, and you will get more of those DAI rewards. But that's not all. Kevin, the doxed founder of the Moon Willie token, also is got other plans, including some NFT related projects and more. In addition, you get me, the voice of DeFi, here giving some real fire AMAs, some really just a fun time. We have this podcast on here Monday through Friday at 1800 UTC. Whenever it's not an AMA, I speak with the community here at Moon Willie, and we really just talk about whatever's going on in crypto. It's like a radio show just about crypto, and it's just kind of laid back. We have fun. We have a little sound effects. Yeah. We have little sound effects that we have, and it's a fun time. So if you're in here and you came here just following around trying to learn about Router and Dfyn, but you wonder where you are, come back in 1800 UTC. If it's not an AMA, it will be a great conversation where you can just learn about crypto and maybe make some new friends along the way. Okay. Gave you a little bit of chance there. Were you able to look over any questions and find any that you think would be worth answering?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I just noticed you have 24,800 members. It's like another 200 to go, and you have 25,000 members. So great.
Yeah, in the beginning, we did a few promotions that brought a lot of people in. That doesn't mean they're always active, but it definitely brought a lot of people in initially with a few different promotions. Right.
And you saw almost 1,000 guys online, so I guess it's a pretty,
Guess they're real. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I'll pick this question. One thing that we get asked is around smart contracts. There's a question from Wahyu. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. It's probably a Telegram handle, so bear with me.
Sure.
So smart contracts are prone to failure, and many projects fall victim to this, costing users money and the project discrediting. How reliable and secure is your smart contract? This is something that's close to our heart. And as I mentioned earlier on in response to your questions, right, there's a number of security issues with cross-chain projects. There's so many different ways in which things can go wrong, and pretty much all our competitors or anybody doing anything in this space, a lot of them have been hacked, including Thorchain, if you remember. So what we are doing is we have some of the biggest auditors in the space. Currently, they're undergoing an audit by Halbon. Halbon is actually a security consultant. So Halbon, for those of you that have not heard of them, they are one of the preeminent blockchain security agencies globally. And in fact, our mainnet closed alpha launch is pending the Halbon audit, successful Halbon audit, which should come anytime in the next few weeks, right? So that's what we're thinking from a security perspective. Yeah, and we're also in talks with like if when we expand to Terra, the Terra blockchain has their own auditor, so we'll be audited by them. So there's going to be a number of audits, and beyond that, we continuously do white hack simulation. Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of starting to pile up quite a few audits along the way, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of the course. I mean, when you have so many millions of dollars stuck in your protocol, you want to make sure you want to spend that whatever 100, 200, 300K. I mean, it's just a small price to pay.
Sure. Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah. I think to the other second question, this is it seems pretty generic, but I'll take it because it's something that I won't read. It's from Wolf Neri. What's the strongest advantage that you think will make your team leading the market? I think with Router, a few things are worth highlighting. A lot of projects are focused on either cross-chain transfers. We enable both cross-chain transfers and swaps, meaning at scale will be like a 1-inch across chains. You could swap for, let's say, your USDT on the Ethereum blockchain with, let's say, Ethereum on Binance BSC, right? So you can literally look for the best execution across blockchains. This is sort of similar to how in traditional finance, if you're a large institution and if you're placing a trade, the agency that's executing the trade for you, maybe it's the bank or maybe it's some other trading firm, they will figure out the best execution for you across a bunch of different venues, right? There's an element of smart order routing. How do you slice and dice the order so that there's no adverse price action, etc. So we enable that. And secondly, from a design perspective, we are one to many, meaning if you're a blockchain and you're coming in and you want to plug into the router what we call the liquidity super mesh, you immediately get access to all the other blockchains in terms of liquidity, right? You don't have to individually connect to, let's say your Ethereum and Polygon is the first version of router, and tomorrow, let's say BSC comes in. So BSC does not have to individually connect to Ethereum and to Polygon. It's just one mesh. And, so tomorrow, later on, let's say the fourth guy comes in, the fourth blockchain comes in, that's immediately connected to all three blockchains. It's not a one-to-one bridge between that fourth blockchain and each of the first three. So that scalability aspect is worth highlighting. And then the other key factor is fragmentation of assets. A lot of the bridges, they will give you a nice bridge, but on the other end, they'll give you, let's say the bridge is called ABC bridge, right? So if you port Ethereum over with that through that bridge from chain A to chain B, you'll have ABCETH or ABC DAI, right? It'll be basically the wrapped version of the token that you want. So that leads to fragmentation of liquidity, right? So you have the core asset and then you have multiple wrapped versions. So we sort of eliminate that. So we will give you the native asset on the chain, whichever chain you want to move to. I think these are some of the key highlights with Router that's worth mentioning.
Fantastic, detailed answer to a question. It was a multi-part question, and you answered each of those parts of it in great detail. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. So I think we 2 questions down, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I think. I'm just going down. There's something from Lomonade Serguero. The token holders have the right to participate in the governance of the project. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't really survive without governance in DeFi. So we have active governance both for Dfyn and for Router, and then we'll also act in the process of setting up this. We already have a Discord channel, but we'll also set up a forum.dfyn and forum.router where folks can actually discuss some of these issues before they're escalated into a governance vote type situation. So governance is a huge part of all these projects, both the projects.
Excellent. Yeah. Great question.
And Satoshi himself is here. What are the upcoming future features and news coming for your project? I can tell you for Dfyn and for Router, we have a super ambitious roadmap, right? So let me start with Dfyn first. So Dfyn, we are very much the first iteration, and there is a lot of things to do. One thing we're focusing on is capital efficiency, a bit like Uniswap V3. And so we have something that is Uniswap, like Uniswap V3, but on Polygon and some of the other chains that we're expanding to, right? So that's a key part of the roadmap. So that makes the AMM far more attractive to a range of institutional users, slightly more enterprise level use case there. We're also expanding across chains that I mentioned. So Dfyn is going to be on Phantom. It's going to be on. It's already on Arbitrum. It's going to be on BSC, on Avalanche, Terra. So I think the only other AMM that is actually spread out like we are is Sushi. So in that aspect, we are very much similar to Sushi, and then we need to do that because, as I mentioned earlier, it's critical for Router to have at least one AMM with some liquidity that it's optimized for. So that's the other impetus for Dfyn to actually expand across chains.
Awesome.
Yeah, from a Router perspective, again, the first launch, the first version that we're launching is very much a V1. The V2 is going to be a full-fledged blockchain, sort of hewing to the Tendermint consensus. So it'll be sort of similar to a lot of the Cosmos projects out there, and it'll be a proper blockchain of its own that will enable a lot of the cross-chain communication that we want to do. And there's a lot of reasoning there, which we'll sort of elaborate on a detailed blog post as soon as the V1 is out in a few weeks.
Awesome. All right. You have knocked down 4 questions. If you can get me one more question, and we'll be done with community questions.
Yeah, sure. What are the use cases to write to where the governance goes? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going through the questions. A lot of them seem...
I think there's some people that just go from project to project with kind of generic questions if they can trying to win those DAI rewards.
Right. No, I mean, it's human. I mean, you have... Sure. That's how the market moves, right?
That's right.
Define a part of the farm's income goes to charitable and community. That's something that... this is a question from Jason Robinson, and I think this is something that, we wanted to do it, but we did not do it. I think this was part of the initial discussions, but eventually we didn't follow through with it. But, one of the things that's close to my heart, and I'm trying to sort of get this consensus growing, crypto is part of the wider world, right? And there's a lot of things happening in the wider world, right? I mean, whether you have, underprivileged folks or environmental issues, there's a ton of causes that deserve a lot of support, and given that we have a unique opportunity in crypto to create and capture a lot of value and create a fair bit of wealth, one of the things that we've been discussing with a few other project community members in this part of the world, in Asia, Hong Kong, India, etc., is for every project, let's allocate 1% to, let's call it the do-good allocation, right? I mean, it could be saving forests, or let the community vote and figure out what cause that needs to go to, right? But that 1% of the tokens will then be allocated to that project that the community votes on. Maybe it's allocated, across. It's not going to be all in one go, right? So be vesting cycle to that, and so on and so forth. So that's something that we really want to do, and especially around carbon credits and environmental conservation and all that. So that's something that we plan to sort of evangelize. Not sure when we'll actually do that. Maybe after the Router mainnet is launched.
Amazing. Great. Thank you for picking out those 5 community questions. We will be getting a hold of the 5 of you that had a question picked, and we will work on getting those DAI rewards to you, $20 each. So make sure you follow us. We've actually got some AMAs also the rest of this week before we get back in next week to just some more regularly scheduled programming. So continue to follow us, because you will learn a lot, because we bring in some smart people in here that know a lot about crypto. So make sure you do that. Well, before I let you go, can you just close us out with a wise word? Let's say there's somebody out there that's trying to find their purpose, trying to find what they're passionate about. They're going through the woes of life.
Right.
You've been through a lot as you've kind of, built yourself up from India to MIT to, now running a major project. What's some wise words you could give to somebody in that situation?
Yeah, I can try. I think I've made more mistakes than I would care to come. But, I think the one thing that I've learned is, even Warren Buffett says, he's probably lucky at the most 50% of the time, right? So there's a huge element of luck in these things, right? You keep trying something, and then as long as, obviously you want to take feedback and be open to feedback from friends and family and the community. But,
sure.
As long as you think that you're going the right direction, right? Understand that there's a huge aspect of the whole outcome that's determined by factors that are not in your control. And I guess you've got to understand, accept that, and just keep plugging away. And then finally some things line up and boom, it'll be, you'll sort of get escalated to the next level of wherever you want to get to. I think that's been a key learning at multiple phases in my life, and things will be really bad, and suddenly something happens. But you got to sort of stick to the process, be upbeat.
Love it. Stick to the process and understand that everything is not under your control. So that is fantastic advice. Well, Mr. Ramani, I love you being in here. You have gave us some great answers on some questions here, and have a great project. I really appreciate you joining us and sharing your knowledge with us.
Well, it's been a pleasure. You're such a great host, and you're so articulated. It's beautiful. It's a great community. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thanks for listening to the official Moon Willie podcast. Don't forget to head to moonwillie.com and learn more about this exciting token.
This podcast is not financial advice. Do not take anything said in this podcast as advice for buying or selling any crypto, stock, index, or other trading tool. You should do your own research or seek the help of a trained financial advisor. This is for entertainment only. The information contained in or provided from or through this podcast is not intended to be and does not constitute financial advice, investment advice, trading advice, or any advice.